Coming up on episode 142 of Creative Writing, I'm sharing all about paid promotions when you launch your book.
I can't go back to sleep, it's almost light. These restless thoughts have kept me up again tonight.
Hey there, this is Kirsten from Creative Writing, and you are in the right place if you're a writer, blogger, or creative who wants to build an online platform without being smarmy. So today I am doing part 3 of a series on book launching, and if you've listened to the other 2, you don't have to listen to those first. I'm going to reference them, but the other 2 talk a little bit more about the ways that you can kind of apply things to not just book launches. This one's going to be a little bit more specific toward book launches, but a couple episodes ago, I told you that you need to write a book either way. So either way, you should be writing a book. So this is going to be applicable to you, whether you're fiction or nonfiction. You have something to say. You should write a book. And I give you 3 reasons. And I think that's episode, let's check, 139. I had to look it up. You can listen to that if you want to be convinced after this. But just to let you know, this is going to be a little bit more specific toward launching books and not as much like, here are some other things you could do with your launches. Although I am talking a little bit about things like Facebook ads briefly, and that could relate to other things. So if you want to look at the show notes for this episode, you can go to creativewriting.com/142 for episode 142. And I also send out a weekly email where you can get notified that the podcast is up and get the link to the blog, because I do write pretty meaty blog posts that go along with these. I have a lot of people who don't actually listen to the podcast, which, I mean, like, that's cool. But it's, I like the podcast, so I wish you'd listen, but I understand some people don't do audio. And as my life has changed and I'm in my car less, I'm listening to less podcasts and I really miss them, but it's just how my life is right now. So I get it. But there are meaty blog posts. There are links to things I'm going to reference in here. So if you're listening and you don't want to read, that's fine too. You can go and just check out the links to things I'm going to mention. But if you want to sign up for the quick fix on Fridays, so you're going to find out about the podcast episodes, get the links to the blog post, and also get some cool resources and tools, you can go to creativewriting.com/quick fix. So I want to get into what we're talking about today, which means I need to just tiny bit of rewind to talk about the last couple of episodes where I talked about book launching. And the thing is this, there are not actually that many, there are a lot of moving parts to a book launch, but I think that launching is actually a little bit more simple than people think in terms of the overall structure of a launch. And I talked about that in episode 140. Kind of give you a back way up and look kind of over the top of a book launch to see what's involved. And it's really not that big of a deal. You have your pre-launch where you're actually like creating the thing, doing some of the basics and getting it all polished. Then you have the launch itself where you're talking about promotion. And that's what we're going to talk about. Part of that today, the paid aspect of promotion. There's free promotion where you network and do other things, and then there's paid. And then there's post-launch, which is kind of down the road. How do you keep that thing, your book or your course or whatever, if it's an evergreen thing, meaning it's for sale all the time, how do you keep the sales afloat? So it's sort of like what happens after that launch period to keep things moving. And so I talked about that in episode 140. And then last week, I talked about, in episode 141, how you can actually network and get other people to share for you through things like newsletter swaps or just asking people, and the right and wrong way to do that. And it actually just made me laugh because when I was recording that episode, like I got several emails that just were awful with people trying to collaborate with me. So I talked about that a little bit in the episode, I think, and shared some suggestions for that, and also shared my book Creative Collaborations, which is on Amazon, which gives you some good tips and ideas for exactly how to reach out to influencers and other people in your niche, because that is hugely important. And so today we're going to talk about the flip side of that, which is, so those things were free, networking, newsletter swaps, that kind of thing. This is paid. So how to use paid promotions. And again, this is going to be a kind of simplistic look. I'm going to share some specifics and things that have worked for me. I have some really great links for you in the show notes. You're definitely going to want to go check those out. Again, it's createifwriting.com/142. If you're ever looking for show notes for a particular episode, that's how I always do it. It's just createifwriting.com/ and then 3 numbers. So if it was like episode 1, which if you go listen to that, oh my, blast from the past there, it would be 001. But this is 142 if you want to go find the link. So let's talk about paid promotions, shall we? Let's talk about paid promotions. This is a scary area for a lot of people. And I will tell you straight up that when I started making money this year, and this was my 3rd month in a row, October, to make over $3,000 just with books on Amazon. And actually, this would have been my best month ever, but Amazon held my book hostage for like 5 days. So like when I launched it, it didn't happen. Like they wouldn't publish it. Anyway, long story short, that's what happens when you trust one platform. So I'm all for going wide, but right now I'm going narrow and focusing exclusively on Amazon for a lot of reasons that maybe I'll talk about later. And I've probably mentioned a little bit here on the show. It's just good for the niche I'm in. But this was my 3rd month in a row to make over $3,000. It was about $3,500 actually each of the past 3 months, which is great. I didn't expect to get up there, especially considering I think it was, so October, I have to count backwards. This is me counting backwards. That was October, September, and August. July, I made $1,700. And then every month before that, I made under $300, like forever. From, I don't know, maybe if I go look back like years ago, when I first published, I still have an Advent devotional, and that did pretty well the very first year that it went out because Amazon worked a little bit differently. So I kind of just like stuck it up there and it sold a lot. But other than that, I went from making very little to a lot. And the biggest impact, the 2 biggest, were the newsletter swaps, but the paid promotions. And I tracked everything on spreadsheets. I'm still tracking things. I'm a little bit less anal. Like I used to go in every couple hours and take a screenshot of my rank on Amazon and then put that in a spreadsheet so that I could see, what each paid promotion was doing. And I would like make this chart with like the asterisks. Now I don't know how to say the plural of that. I put a little notation by that to say if there was a newsletter swap also that day, so I could try to identify which of the promotions were working well. So in any case, I'm going to talk more about that specifically, but that's when I started making the money. So if you're scared of these paid things, I totally get it. I'm going to share the ones that are less risky. And I just think if you want to make money, you have to put money in. That doesn't mean you have to go dump a couple $1,000s. And so I would say for each of those months directly on marketing, I spent under $500 to get to that $3,500. So that's a pretty great return on investment. And by under, I think it was way under. So I do not, I kept a spreadsheet for those things, but I didn't keep a great spreadsheet for what I spent. But I can tell you for sure it was under 500. I think it was even way less than that. Anyway, so if you're scared, don't be scared. You need to invest in yourself. I'm going to say this again at the end and just kind of give you a little pep talk about that. But let's talk about the 2 main ways that you can pay to promote your book when you're launching it, and even actually after you've launched it. And then I'll give you some specifics and things to question and think about when you're trying to decide where to put your money, because the last thing I want you to do is waste your money. And I'm going to give a big caveat here first. I talk to a lot of people and hear a lot of people saying, I don't like marketing. I don't want to do it. I just want to pay someone. I totally get it. I talk about this a little bit in the last episode and just how we need to think of it, maybe reframe the conversation. It may not be your favorite thing ever to market, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be confusing. It doesn't have to be a huge pain. And it doesn't have to cost thousands of dollars. So if you have a company coming to you saying, if you give me $3,000 or $10,000, I'm going to do all the marketing for you. Just please don't take that money. You could even hire a virtual assistant to run a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today for you, and you would pay way less and see more return. So if you're hearing from people who are like, pay me this amount and I'm going to do this for you, just be really, really wary. There are a lot of scams and not just scams, but just bad ideas in terms of book marketing, or people who call themselves publishers, but really you have to pay them thousands of dollars to get your book out there. Don't do that. That is, those are not traditional publishers. Those are what I like to call sort of vanity presses, where they make you feel really good because they give you bookmarks and physical copies of your book. and they take all your money. So that part doesn't feel good, but it makes you feel warm and fuzzy because you published your book, but just like, don't do that, please. Let's talk today about what you should do instead. And I'm going to make it simple. So there's two main things that you can do, two main ways that you can pay to promote your book. The first is paid newsletter promotions. And those are things like BookBub, if you subscribe to that, or BookSends, eNewsReader Today. There are hundreds of them, but those are a few bigger names you may have heard of. And then the second is paid advertisements like on Facebook ads, or what used to be called AMS ads, but Amazon rebranded and they're called Amazon Services ads. So I guess I still like to call them AMS. I'm just used to that, but ads on Amazon. But basically those are paid advertisement spots where you're paying kind of per click or sale, depending on how they're set up. So those are the two main things that we're going to talk about today. And I think that those are the two biggest ways if you're launching a book that you could put money in that you're going to get money back. So let's start with paid newsletter promotions. And I will tell you, first of all, that this has been the biggest place that I have seen a return on my investment. And there are a couple of reasons for this. The first is that email just hands down outperforms other things for sales. I'm linking in the show notes to research on this, like people have done research on this. And also Tim Grahl, who is huge in this kind of author space and has done a lot with launching books and bestsellers, talks about this extensively in his free books. And I also linked to a blog post where he talks about the results that he saw working with authors time and time again over things like posting on Twitter or posting on Facebook versus email. So email is the most effective promotional tool you have. But for many of us, it's hard to grow that email list. And so you hear that and you're like, okay, well, I'll try to grow my list, but I'm also trying to write a book and I'm also trying to sell a book. And if I don't sell any books, then I'm not going to grow my list, because when I sell a book, people get my book and then they see my email sign up and then they sign up. But if I don't sell my book, so okay, yeah, chicken and egg problem. That was me worrying out loud. That was me. The thoughts I have had, the thoughts I imagine you to be having. It feels like that chicken and egg problem, right? So you don't have a big email list. So how do you get a big email list and how do you sell if you don't have one? Well, you pay other people who have grown email lists, giant email lists of hundreds of thousands of people, or sometimes even 10,000 people. You're paying them to promote your book. Now, I mentioned a few of these sites like eNewsReader Today or eReader News. I always forget which one it is. A lot of times we just call it ENT. There's Robin Reads. And don't try to take a list. Just go to the show notes, because I have links to both Kindlepreneur and Readsy's list of sort of vetted sites. And I'm not making my own list for you because other people have done that really well, but I'm going to link to those. So don't try to be like, oh no, which one did she say? I'm not telling you necessarily which ones you should use, but I'm going to give you links to where you can find all those. So again, show notes, creativewriting.com/142. I'm going to link to those, but these basically are companies that have spent money and time to grow and cultivate a big giant email list full of buyers who want your book. And when you're paying for these promotions, you are paying for your book cover and description and a link to your book to go in those emails in front of all those readers. Now, not all of these are created equal. Not all of them cost the same. Not all of them require the same thing. So I'm going to give you some questions to ask and things to consider as you do this. But again, this has been the biggest impact I have seen on my sales going up, is that I dove in and started paying for these promotions. And the book I launched, let's see, for March, let me see if I can pull up those sales actually right now. When I launched, I'm going to do a custom list here. When I launched my first book this year as Emma, that was, I believe, in March. So I'm looking that up right now. And I didn't do any paid promotions. I really didn't know what I was doing. I had been growing an email list and it was very small. But I went ahead and launched it. Okay. So I'm looking at that now, and I made not quite $200 in that very first month of that Emma book. And that was, oh no, that was 3 months, March, April, May. Oh, March, April. Okay. So in 2 months, I made just over $100 or $120 on just that book. So I did not do so great. And then in July, and I should have pulled this up ahead of time, I didn't really plan to do this, so I'm kind of talking through it. So July, I launched a book and really went hard and heavy with both the newsletter swaps and the paid promotions. But I did probably 10 paid, no, I didn't do 10. I did between 5 and 10 paid promotions, and I made $1,700 that month. So big jumps. And that is it was not as much due to my backlist of books, which is the other books. At that point, I had 3 full-length novels for Emma. But those each made so the other 2 had launched made previously, the backlist made under $200 for that month. And the new release made $1,300 on its own. And that's the one I was paying for promotions. And so that's the power of these paid promotions. I really have seen a big impact. So when you're thinking about setting those up, here are the things you need to consider as you're choosing which one to do. So first of all, do you need reviews or other requirements? Some of them require that you have 10 to 20 reviews before you can book them. And this is another one of those chicken and egg problems. If you're just starting out, those reviews are hard to get. I feel you. And if you can get 10 people on your launch team, well, first of all, 10 people, they're not all going to review your book. So you want more than 10. And we can talk about building a launch team later. But for me, it looked like starting to build that email list by putting out a book first and then putting out a freebie that you could get once you bought the book. And then asking on that email list, even though it was a couple hundred people, hey, does anybody want a free copy of the next book in advance in hopes for a review? You can't ask for it in exchange. You can't pay for reviews. Amazon's very strict. You don't want your friends and family to do it. They'll take down the reviews. But you try to build a review team to get those reviews. But again, it's a chicken and egg problem, but some of them don't require reviews and some of them do. So you need to think about that, because it's really disappointing if you're like, oh, well, I'll just rely heavily on that. And then your book is launching and you don't have any reviews after 5 days. And then you can't get paid promotion. So again, you're kind of stuck in that limbo. Like I can't promote my book until I have reviews, but I can't get reviews until I promote my book. So you want to try to build that launch team of people who can help kickstart the reviews. You also want to look and see if the promotional site breaks down into specific genres, because you're much more likely to sell copies if it's not like an everything book promotion site, but a promotion site that will send out targeted emails to those readers. Because if you're in an email with like 15 other books, some of them are thrillers, some of them are romance, some of them are young adult, it's a little bit harder to sell those books because there's a lot of distraction. And yes, some people read all. I read all over the place. I've gotten in this weird fantasy kick. I used to hate fantasy, and I'm reading spy thrillers and clean romance. Like I'm all over the place, right? But the emails that are more effective to me are the ones that are shorter and have fewer books and are a little bit more tailored. So just think about that. Does it break down into specific genres? And also the cost, which is the next question, what's the cost? When they break it down to specific genres, some genres cost more than others. So that's something to take into account. What is the cost of the promotion? What do other authors say? And I think this is hugely important. I like to ask this in Facebook groups and see what people say. No, everybody will not have the same opinion. I've seen people say, this one's great. And the next comment, that one was horrible for me. And it's always good to ask them, well, what was your genre? What was your book title? Because if you can find out the book, sometimes people will say, oh, that was horrible for me. And then I'll go check out their book and their book cover stinks and it's not going to sell books. So it was not the promotional site. It was their cover. So big caveat to this, if you're going to pay, make sure your cover at the least, if not your cover and your blurb, you really want both, but your cover for sure has to look like other books in the genre. It has to look professional, period. You will not make any money unless it's a fluke, and it's not likely. You're not going to be investing wisely in paid promotions if your book cover sucks. Just sorry, I can't. I'm saving you. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm saving you from wasting your money. And if you aren't sure, then you need to ask. Find some writer groups. The creative writing group is amazing. We are not just writers though. So we do sometimes have people asking about covers, but you may want to go into a more just writing specific group or just fiction, or maybe even in your niche. Like I have found just connecting with clean romance authors has been hugely helpful to see all the covers that people have when they're sharing the newsletter swaps or asking about cover advice. It's hugely important. So again, take that into account. Ask what other authors think, but also maybe check out their books and ask their genre. If they say it didn't work for them, well, what are they, fantasy and you are writing nonfiction? Well, it may not be the same experience, but it's good to take into account. Another thing to check out is whether or not the book has to be live. So some of the promotional sites, especially if you already have a backlist with reviews on it, some of the promotional sites will let you say, I have a book that's launching on, November 5th. It's not up yet. here's the name of it. Here are my other books kind of as my social proof so that you can see I've written other books. They have reviews. They have favorable reviews. Can I send you the link later? And I've done that a couple times successfully, but a lot of times these promos are things you have to set up after the fact. And then the hard thing with that too is that some of them are booked months in advance. There was one I wanted to use and I looked and they were booked out for 3 full months. And so that's something to take into account as well, is what's their schedule like? Does it fit with what you're doing? So you need to look and see if you can email beforehand and set it up, or if you have to wait till it's live. And then also, how competitive is it to get on there? The other thing is some of these, especially there's a couple on Fiverr that are okay. Instant Books or Insta Books, I believe, is one I've used on Fiverr. And I've seen some, I mean, not amazing, but it's also not expensive, like maybe $10. And that one, I've seen a couple on there. I'm not sure if that one offers it, but some of them offer a post on Facebook and they'll be like, we have 35,000 Facebook likes. Well, nobody sees anything on Facebook, right? So like, I've gone to some of those places and actually looked at their Facebook page, and yeah, they have 35,000 likes or whatever amount of likes. Yeah, they're posting about books all day long, but no one likes a post, no one comments on a post. It's kind of like their Facebook page is just this dead link graveyard, and I don't want to pay for that. So again, email sells way more than social media does. Just that's been proven. You may have a different experience and that's amazing, but you are not the norm. Okay. The norm is that email sells. So if you're going to pay, make sure it's email, because sometimes they'll be misleading and say, we'll promote your book to 20,000 fans. And what they mean is, if you look at the fine print, we have 20,000 page views every month. Okay. But that doesn't mean all 20,000 people saw your book and that weird blog post you wrote. So you really need to ask. And I just pay for email. I'm not going to pay for something else. I don't care if their Twitter audience loves books. Maybe they do, but I'm not paying for that. I don't ever buy books off of Twitter. This is anecdotal. This isn't research, but research shows email works. That's what I pay for. So this is, again, where I've seen the most return on investment. I feel like it's much less risky than the one we're about to talk about, which is paid advertisements. Because again, you're getting into people's inboxes, email converts, and these emails, they just have more power because they have more numbers behind them. And if you can find one that is not too expensive, and some of them are like, so I would say there's a range between like 10, and then there's, I don't know if it's Books Butterfly. One I've never used because it's too expensive is like a couple $100. I'm just not doing that. Most of mine that I pay for are under $50. There's one or two. I think ENT, e-Newsreader Today, e-Reader News Today, and maybe BookSends are a little bit more pricey, like $60. And I will pay for those because I do see sales from those consistently over months. I do see sales. And so I'm willing to pay a little bit more, like $60 for my niche, to see my books go there. But a lot of the ones I pay for are like $25 and they work really well. So it's not always like you pay more, you get more. You have to test it. You have to ask other authors. But I do see the results. And sometimes it's not just a direct thing. Like what I do not do is sit around saying, okay, I spent $60. Did I make $60 today? Because the return on investment isn't always, did it come back to you exactly? Because what's happened, so my latest book, I'm going to dive into analytics again. My latest book, The Billionaire Benefactor, that I launched, actually that's not my latest book because I published 2 in October. Tip, don't publish 2 books in a month. It was a little crazy, but I published that one and have stopped promoting it a couple days ago. I think because I launched another book and I'm now promoting that book. So I launched it 2 weeks ago and I stopped promoting it, but today it made $124 and had 20,000 page reads. So people are buying the book. They are still reading the book because the ranking is high. It's in the top 1,000 still 2 weeks after launch. It went down, it went up a little out of the top 1,000, then it went back down. When I say down, I mean like actually a higher rank, but down like into under the thousands. That's a backwards way to talk about it. But in any case, the rank went up as it goes, drops down underneath the top 1,000. So it's stuck there. And that is because of the newsletter swaps and the paid promotions, because those get it up there. So it's not always like, did I make this exact dollar amount today? Maybe not. I've seen a lot of like things that fall over to the next day and carry over. So like the last big paid promotion I did for that one, I saw a lot of book sales that day, but the next day I had no sales set up, no promotions, no email swaps, nothing that I actively did. And I was still making sales. Like when I got up in the morning, I had made like $50 by 9 a.m. because people were still reading. I still had page reads. I still had sales that were trickling over from the day before. So I don't think the best way to tell your ROI is like that exact dollar amount, because some of it is getting that visibility. When your book starts ranking really well, people will see it. So just so you know, it's not always like, okay, did I make that exact dollar amount today? And so I do track how many sales I made that day, to keep in my spreadsheet. So if you're testing, that's really good. But you have to realize, especially if you're in Kindle Unlimited, it's not just the book sales, it's how many page reads, it's where did your rank get to? Did it help you get to the rank you want to so that you have visibility? What happened the next day? You might want to look at the next couple of days. So if you have time, you want to kind of test these promotions and see how they work and see how they work for you and in your niche and with your book. But don't pay for anything if your cover stinks. If you are not paying for a cover and you are not a professional designer, I would not pay for promotions, because most likely your book is not going to stand up against the other books in that email and people will not buy your book. So again, get all your other stuff straight. And then if they read your book and it stinks or it has tons and tons and tons of errors, I will say I pay an editor and we still sometimes find errors. It makes me insane. Not mad at my editor. That's just human error. Like that's just life. Like no matter what, there are going to be errors in your book. But if there's too many, like this my actual latest book, none of my normal editors could do it because it was so last minute. Because again, I did 2 books in a month. Don't do that. But none of them could do it. And I just freaked out still finding typos in there. But if you have that, I'm pretty clean. So if that happens, like I know there might be 1 or 2 mistakes or probably more than that, but it's not going to be one of those things where it's enough that people put it in the reviews. But if you don't hire a professional editor and you're not super clean and you have a bunch of things, you're going to get bad reviews. So if your book quality and your book cover stink, then don't pay, because you're not going to get that money back. Okay, I think I've beaten that to death. But if you want to get the promotional sites, I did link to some other people who have left big lists. I'm not making a list because other people did it first. Okay, so let's move into part 2 of paid promotions, and that's paid advertisements. And I'm not spending as much time here because frankly, I have not found as much success here. And this is not where I would tell you to start if you are just starting out. Here is why. So the 2 main ones that people often use are Facebook ads and the Amazon services ads, formerly known as AMS ads. Many people do find success with these, but here's the thing you have to know. The downside is, unlike the paid promo sites where you just basically like give them a link and pay them, these you have to set them up and run them, which means you have to understand how to create a Facebook ad, how to create the right image size, what kind of image converts, not putting too much text on there because they don't want too much text or they'll reject your ad on there. What does the ad copy look like? How do you do Facebook Ads Manager? And if you're feeling stressed out, that's okay. That was a little bit my intent, because I want you to understand that when people are like, oh, I just ran some Facebook ads and it worked. That's not how it works generally. Like if that works for you, okay, cool. You got lucky and you're amazing. But for the most part, whether it's the AMS ads or Facebook ads, you have to do some research and you have to test way more. You have to test a lot of things, and it's very much on your own. So you can read books, you can do free courses. I'm leaving some links and resources in the show notes. But if you don't have the time for that, and if you don't have some money to throw around, because again, like with Facebook ads, you have to really test it to see if it's going to work. And if you don't have the time for that, then you may not want to do that. This may not be the best bet for you. So the things to consider as you do these are, do you have time to learn something new? Do you have the money to actually test to make sure they're working? For the AMS ads, especially, the reporting is so bad that if you don't know really how to calculate and look at those numbers, and you also can't tell about your sales in KU from those, if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to do analytics and all that jazz, you're not going to even know if those are working, because AMS, the reporting is so bad. If you don't really know how to read Facebook or what a good cost per click is on Facebook ads, then you're not going to know whether they're working well. And so if you don't have money to actually test and run some ads over a period of time, this is maybe not where you want to start. This is maybe a more advanced level, or you want to hire somebody that knows what they're doing. So you can also ask other authors if they're having success with that particular, with those ads in their space. And as a tip, you can actually go to a Facebook page now. And I'm going to go to mine and see what I can see. But if you go to a Facebook page, you can actually look now and see what ads they have run lately. So if you go over to the left sidebar, so I'm looking at my Kirsten Oliphant page. I don't actually have a page for creative writing. I just have one for Kirsten Oliphant, and I'm not running any right now, so it doesn't show them. But if you have been running ads, or if someone in your niche is and you want to kind of spy, you can't see the results, but you can see what their ads look like. You can check out their copy, and you can see what ads they're running and what they look like, which is a really nice, kind of way to get an idea of what people are doing with their books. And I think that that's a really good suggestion for you to go look. So I'm looking at another author, and I'm looking at her info and ads, and I'm seeing like 3 different posts up there for her ads. So I can see the images that she used. I can see the copy that she used. No, I can't see her results, but I can see if anybody liked them or commented on them. So that's a pretty cool thing that you can do. Just as a little tip there, if you want to look and do some research on your own, there are some great books on AMS ads and Facebook ads. There's a great free course on Amazon marketing services from Dave Chesson of Kindlepreneur. And so I'm linking to that in the show notes as well as you're testing. But I think the real question, I'm not against paid advertisements, but for me, they've been less successful because I'm writing a book a month. I don't have time to figure out ads. I've taken a Facebook ads course. In theory, I know how they work. In practice, they have never really worked very well for me. And that's just reality. It's kind of, I hate admitting that. I would love to say that I have rocked out my Facebook ads, but the reality is no, I haven't. And I've actually run them for both nonfiction things and fiction. And again, I've taken free things and I've taken courses, and I have not ever seen them really be profitable. I haven't lost my shirt in them. And sometimes they kind of broke even. Sometimes it's hard to tell, especially if you are running ads to like a webinar, to a course, which I've done. I probably made money doing that, but I was never really, really happy with the cost per click, and the conversions that I got. So just when you're thinking about like a more sure bet, it's going to be those email promotions. So when you're starting out, you want to do that. If you have the time, the inclination, or the money to hire someone and the money to really test, then your paid advertisements can work. A lot of people are finding success with the Amazon services ads. A lot of people are finding success with Facebook ads, but it just takes more time. So I did say we were spending less time there, and we are, but I want to just encourage you as you're starting out to understand that to make money, you have to invest in yourself. And as I said, I really didn't start making money until a couple things. One, I had a few books, not just one book. The first book was harder, but that first book, I didn't pay for anything. I don't think maybe I paid for one thing. I don't even remember what I did. I sort of was like, I'm launching my book now. And I did that. And I wasn't at that point. I remember I wasn't connected with a lot of other clean romance authors. I just sort of put the book out. I had an email list of a few hundred people. I said, yay, the book is out. I told all my friends. And then I kind of waited to make thousands of dollars, and it didn't happen. When I started making thousands of dollars is when I started putting $25 and $30 and $50 or $60 into these different paid email things. Things is the technical term. Obviously, the promotional sites for email. That's when I started making thousands of dollars, when I combined that with the power of newsletter swaps. So if you're considering this, I know when you're starting out that it's a bootstrapping thing. I totally get it. But I would say maybe pick a few places and invest. You have to invest something. And I really think that's important. Now, it gets hard when you're talking about investing because you've got a cover, because I'd already told you to get a professional cover. If you are getting somebody to edit for you, that might be a cost too. And the costs really do start adding up. They absolutely do. You can find cheap covers that are still really good. German Creative on Fiverr is great. There's some other ones on Fiverr that are actually really, really good and pretty affordable. They're not all $5, but I mean, $5 for a cover was insane. I think, $15 to $25 is often what I'll pay on Fiverr. And that's a great price for a cover. I've paid $50 for covers that are fantastic. And the books The books that I am making all this money with, I have not spent more than $50 on any of the covers. So just so you know, you can have a professional looking cover. Now in your genre, it may be different. So if you're fantasy, you're going to probably have to spend a bit more because the covers are a little bit more stylized and illustrate-y, another technical term. They're a little more illustrate-y. And so again, it's going to depend on your genre, but there's some great sites. Another site I really like is goonwrite.com. Even if you're doing like a custom cover with him, he has pre-made covers. And once you buy it, they're off the site. So you're not going to see them somewhere else. But even his custom packages, I think are like $100. So cover is hugely important. I know it's hard when you're starting out, but it's kind of all about those long-term goals. And can you invest? Where can you invest? Think about that ROI. And the ROI, you're going to see it more early on with those email ads because, again, email promotions, email sells, email promotions are more surefire than running Facebook ads where there are way too many variables. So invest in yourself and then test what works over time to see what works for you, because it's great to hear what other people have, found as far as what works for them. Take that and then see if that also works for you. Invest and test. So that's where I'm going to leave you with the paid promotions. And I hope that this was encouraging and not stressful. If you don't have a lot of money, start looking through that list of ads that I'm going to link to in the show notes, creativewriting.com/142. Pick a couple that are not so expensive. But if you're just picking one, you're not going to see a ton of results. It works best if you either stack a couple on the same day or stack them out over a week of time to get that book continually in front of people, to get your ranking up. And then when your ranking is up, more people see the book, and it's that cause and effect that keeps it going up. So invest in yourself, test to see what works. Don't be scared. And if you're just starting out, I would say the email promotions are a much better bet than the ads, because ads are a lot more tentative. You just don't know what you're going to get with those. There's too many variables. So that's where I'm leaving you today with your launching. And some of this, again, will apply to other things you're launching, but for the most part, this was just about book sales. I would love for you to go check out the whole series. You can just head over to Creative Writing if you want to see the whole series. If you're listening in 2018, I'm recording this on November 1st. But again, if you want to find the whole list, I'll link to the other parts of the series if you go to creativewriting.com/142. And if you're not on my email list, go to creativewriting.com/quick fix. And you can join the community where we talk a lot and share a lot of stories. Again, it's not just writers in this community. So if you're like, oh, I'm not a writer, I'm not going to come, please come. And if you are a writer, realize that like if you post things with a lot of like things like my WIP, like work in progress, is this, and my main character is this. That's not the kind of group it is. We're a little bit more based on platform. We're supporting each other, asking questions. It's not where you come to sell your book. That's not the kind of group. So if you want to come and learn and hang out with the community, you can go to creativewriting.com/community. So I'm going to leave you with this: invest and test. But more importantly, this week, go out and create work that you love to serve your people well.